Greetings and salutations, friends. My name is, of course, Charles Q. Banks, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Charles' Anime Episode Summary and Review of Kimetsu no Yaiba, Episode 5. Now, I'm actually pretty happy with this episode. I do not have that much negative to report, which I'm really glad of. This was a really solid episode. I mean, there were a couple things I can still complain about, but it's majorly positive in most ways, which, may be something negative if you're just wanting to see me incredulous, as some people seem to enjoy. But something I kind of failed to say about the last episode and all the episodes is that Jared Mithorandir, one of the commentators on my show, definitely said, and he was right to point out, that one Yuki Kajiura is the composer of the music in this show, and she also did some of the music in Kara no Kyokai, which is Garden of Sinners in English, and I really like that series. Not every episode in the series, but I really love that episode, the episodes in which she actually did the compositions. And in the last episode, where we first see the giant hulking demon beast, her compositions were front and center, creepy with MIDI keyboard sounding electronic beat music going on, along with some ancient Japanese chanting. Is really cool and really creepy. That really stood out to me in the last episode, and it continues throughout the whole show. So just know, Yuki Kajiura, one of the best in the business for compositions of really emotional and interesting songs, usually combining electronic or orchestral music with freaky little chants. She's a great composer. Now, this episode starts off, just like the last one, recapping what happened at the end of the previous episode. And once it gets past that, showing Tanjiro beheading the demon, the morphed demon is what they call him in this episode. He is shown in a flashback, in a black and white flashback, in his original human-esque demon form, before he fully transformed into a hulking mass of limbs. He is shown to be eating a person, and it's really I really love the directorial choices here, which was to make it black and white, kind of noir, really, truly noir, with going back to that, old samurai style of, seeing the samurai come down the hallway of houses in the snow, with the blood splattered and on the walls and in the snow. And there's a quick fight, and it was so fast that I barely saw it happening. Tengu, in his younger days, without the gray hair, with black hair, comes and approaches him with his sword drawn, and the morphed demon, of course, attacks him, and things just happen. In 2 seconds, the battle is over. That first engagement happens, and like I said before, the choreography is actually really good. I actually slowed it down this time to see what was going on, and it really shows the power and foresight of Tengu in his fight. He attacks the demon back. The demon turns around, slashes him, and he catches it with his katana, and then the demon jumps up in the air and does a strike downwards, which he's able to dodge, and once he's dodged, he knows where the demon is going to fall, so he's able to immediately strike once the demon hits the ground. And that happens in a split second. So you can't really tell what's going on. It's very quick, but it's actually well choreographed. And I just wanted to check that, because in the previous couple episodes I said there was good choreography, and really it was just really fast, flashy action. But in this one I actually checked, and there's actually real choreography, fight choreography going on that makes sense. And so then it shows Tengu jumping off of, chasing after the guy, and he loses him, and the demon is looking around, and Tengu, behind him, jumps off of a roof, straight at him, beheads him, or at least looks like it beheaded him. At least it wounded him, and we know that he survived because he is now in that enclosure of wisteria trees. It switches to present day when he is fighting, our boy Tanjiro, and he is doing the exact same attack to behead him this time, and he has like a flashback to Urokudachi, which is the name of Tengu, and the same attack happening, and he has a little flashback vision, and he says, Urokudachi! And then he gets beheaded, is still alive. Of course, demons can still live on in their little headed, beheaded form, and he watches Tanjiro as he sheathes his sword in the perfect, Japanese samurai way, going across his arm and then slowly putting it back into the sheath. And I like that attention to detail, I really do. So then we have another flashback to before he fought Tengu-sama, and it's the demon, as he is transforming, as he is changing from just a normal boy to his demonic self, and he's crying in the darkness. He's asking, "Where are you, brother? Why did I bite you? I didn't mean to. Please come. I'm lonely and scared. Hold my hand like you always did before when I was scared." And it's just, it is so. It's like, come on, show. Don't do this to me. Don't make me feel for the enemy after I know he's already been beheaded. But that's what it's doing. So, which is very effective, very, very good, very well done. And so he's wanting the embrace of his brother. And his body is automatically holding out one of its hands, one of the remaining hands that hasn't turned to ash yet. And Tanjiro turns with this look of sadness and disappointment on his face, and he goes, sees the outstretched hand, puts his little tiny hands around it, because this hand is huge, it's massive, he's not gonna just put his little tiny hand in there, which I was careful dude, that hand could still crush you, it could crush your head, it's so big. But of course, Tanjiro is the excellent Buddhist that we expect him to be, and just cares for absolutely everyone. And it's a great characteristic for a hero to have. And as he holds the hand of the dying demon, you can see his little head is slowly turning to ash from one side to the other, and his eyes are tearing up, and huge crocodile tears are falling out, and then he just disappears, and it's oh my gosh, I can't believe they went there. So that was rough, man. That was emotionally rough. I almost teared up myself. I didn't, but it was oh my gosh. Tanjiro prays to Buddha for the demon to be reincarnated into someone who will not turn into a demon, and to have a good life. Basically, he prays for him to go to heaven, to be justified, which is, the equivalent in Buddhism. And he does. You see his pre-demon form, in the darkness, in the ideal space or whatever, in the blackness, and he stands up and he sees a light and he runs to the light, and it's his brother, and he's holding a lantern, and he goes to his brother and he's like, "Hey brother," and he's like, "Oh, are you crying again? You silly boy, and take my hand and let's go home." And it's whoa, he actually saved the demon's soul, which is something that never really happens in shows nowadays, especially superhero shows or just shows with protagonists. The protagonist is generally out to kill the enemy, or at least out to beat the enemy. Maybe he's not, really hateful, maybe he's not murderous, but generally when the protagonist kills an enemy, there's really no sense of loss. There's no sense of, oh, I wish I didn't have to do that. So it is refreshing. I mean, it does happen every once in a while. It's in Trigun, with Vash the Stampede is I think the best example of that. He really doesn't kill anyone in that show. He has to kill like one person, one or two people at most, and each time it just breaks him. And I love those characters because like that's the kind of hero I want. I don't want a hero who's just able to absolutely destroy everything with impunity. I want someone who has emotional struggles with death and with the problem of the fact that some enemies have to be killed, and it shouldn't be that way, you know? These things ought not to be. And you really get that from Tanjiro, and I'm just excellent. Excellent job, Kimetsu no Yaiba. Hats off to you. So, the show continues on, and it does another thing that I love. Tanjiro has his sister, Nazeko, on his mind, even as he is surviving, trying to get out of the Wisteria forest, or at least get to the other side, throughout the weeks, the 2 weeks that he's in there. And so every time he is attacked by a demon, he tries and asks them, how do I turn my sister, who is a demon, into a human? Do you know how? And they're just like, you know. And so it's like, oh man, he's trying to ask literal zombie demons, you know, with logic, trying to get them, and compassion. He's like appealing to the sense of compassion in a demon. It's just like, oh wow, man. But he's trying. He's really trying to help his sister at this point, which is something that hasn't been referenced a whole lot in this show, and I like the fact that it's being referenced now, and I like the fact that it's not working. You know, it's like, of course a demon wouldn't actually answer that question, but they have the ability to communicate, and they're really like... He continues to kill them, and every time he kills a demon, you can see this like glazed over look of like, dang it, I didn't want to have to do that. And you can really just feel that sense of loss and disappointment and frustration, annoyance, sadness every time it happens. It's like, it's palpable. So finally he gets to a place where the wisterias are in full bloom, and they're just glowing in the morning sunlight. And apparently, I may have gotten this wrong, it seemed to me in the last episode that the two little creepy twin doll girls were telling them to survive for 2 weeks. But in this episode, it seems like the point was to get through the forest to the other side, and then you would finish the final test. So that's what happens. He gets to the other side, and he's done. You know, I was thinking, wait, doesn't he have to stay there for longer? He reached another edge of the forest. What is going to happen now? So he goes beyond the edge of the forest, and apparently he got to the place where everyone was meant to be after being in the forest, going through the final test. And there are 4 other people there. A girl, you know, with like a butterfly decoration in her hair. A blonde guy who's like, he's basically an Eeyore character, someone who is always depressed. He's like a nihilist. He's always thinking about how badly he's going to die and how soon he's going to die. He's like, it doesn't matter that I made it through. I'm just gonna die anyway. I'm gonna die at some point, you know? It's like, well, you're not wrong. But dang, do you have to focus on that? So I think I'm really going to enjoy his character. I love the design of, and this is a trope, like in anime, the design of characters with short hair, but the hair looks like it's chopped off on the ends. It's chopped off on the ends to look almost like dreadlocks. And you know that this isn't like literal dreadlocks, but the way that they stratified the way the hair falls, it looks like kind of like dreadlocks. And that's something that happened in Bakemonogatari. In that character, you'll know what character. I can't remember her name, but if you've seen Bakemonogatari and the next installments, you will know the character I'm referring to. Really looks like, you know, those cut ends, perfectly cut rectangular strands. Is just a really cool design, and I like it. That's all I'm trying to say. So I think I'll really like him. We don't know his name yet. And then there's like a really mean, you know, shonen bully guy who might have a heart of gold, but he is just filled with anger and angst, and he has no patience at all. And then there's Tanjiro. Who is the fifth person? I don't remember at all. But anyway, they come and there are the two twins. They show up again. They're crazy eyes, and tell them, "Congratulations!" And of course Tanjiro is like, "Where are the rest of the 20 people that showed up? We're the only ones that survived." It's a horrible thing. And then he thinks back to the guy who ran away on him and left him to die, thinking, "I'm sad he's not here. He died because I wasn't able to save him." And it's like, dude, that guy left you in the dust. But of course, he's the perfect Buddhist. He just loves everyone, and he has the right attitude toward everyone, which is quite like, oh man, this is actually a good guy, This is an admirable quality. This guy is someone whom you can idolize safely, if you want. So then the twins are like, "We will now give you the rankings of," and then the bully type with a scar across his face comes and says, "Okay, where's my demon sword? Give me my demon sword now." And they're like, "In order to get your demon sword, you must pick and choose an ore to create the sword with, and then it will take 15 days to create the sword." And he's like, "Are you kidding me?" And then he takes hold of the white twin's hair, the creepy doll hair, and he takes hold of it and is like, he pushes her against the ground and says, "You do it now. You give me the sword now, the Demon Slayer sword." Which is interesting. Only Tanjiro seemed to have a Demon Slayer sword. I guess it wasn't the same type, but he was able to do these crazy water attacks with it. So he's one of the only ones who had a sword who could actually kill a demon out of all the people who came into this. And it's like, wow. That is impressive if anyone else who didn't have a Demon Slayer sword could get through this. So Tanjiro, of course, comes to the rescue of the little creepy twin, and she does nothing. She doesn't react at all. She just is taking it. And he puts his hand on his arm and is like, "Let go or else I'll break your arm." He's like, "Try it." And he starts to break his arm, and of course the guy retracts. And, they go through with the rest of the ritual of choosing the ore. And all of the ore looks exactly the same on the desk. And he sniffs and chooses, and then it goes to black, and it shifts to another scene. Oh, ravens or crows were allotted to each one of them as messengers to communicate with each other or someone, but it's revealed who they're communicating with the leader of the Demon Slayers. And you see one of the ravens communicating that 5 survived the test, and, what iron ore they picked, I assume. And he says, 5 survived. So many, eh? I have, an increased number of children this time. I am glad, and I wonder how they'll do, And we don't see his face, we just see his long hair. It's basically like imperial cut hairstyle. And then the scene cuts again to black, and all of a sudden Tanjiro is like halfway back home with his, like, a staff, and he's carrying luggage, and he's all bandaged up, and it's like, whoa, wait, what's happening? What? Did he receive his sword already? Did he wait 15 days? Did he stay at the edge of the forest? It was a very jarring scene transition, which made no sense, and that's the only thing I can really complain about here in this episode. It's not, I wouldn't call this a nitpick, it's just like, it's really confusing that all of a sudden he's all the way back home, and he's like half dead because he wasn't able to rest on the way, and is like, wait, what? Why is he so tired? Why is he so exhausted? He was able to make it to the forest fine. I guess they didn't feed him? You didn't sleep, I guess? And he said, even my uniform is heavy, and that's what's in his bag. So it's a strange strange scene transition, but he's making it home, I guess. He collapses multiple times, has to hoist himself up on his stick, and then once he gets back to the shack, he sees the shack, and the door gets kicked open, which I love, and out comes Nazeko, fully awake for the first time in 2 stinking years, and she runs into the arms of the collapsed Tanjiro. And he's crying, and she just is embracing him, and he's like, "You're awake! You're actually awake! You know, it's been so long, you've been sleeping for so long. Why? Why were you asleep?" Which is voicing my own problems. It's like, yeah, why was she asleep? We still don't know. Well, actually, in the next scene, it's kind of revealed what's happening. Which I did think about, but I didn't think that would actually be the case. But, So, Tengu comes out, and he's been hoisting wood, and he drops the wood, and he sees Tanjiro, and he runs over, embraces them, says, "You're back alive." And you can see, it's really funny, because he has a full mask around his face. And so the only way that they can show emotion is by showing, like, the edges of crocodile tears coming down out of the mask, which is like, wow, you found a way, guys. So good on you. Another good emotional scene, which actually deals with a couple of the questions that I asked, like, why is no one having a real problem with this? Why doesn't he talk to Tengu about why his sister was, like, asleep or dead in a coma for all this time? And so he asks, finally, in the next scene, he's sitting, at home with Tengu and is talking to him, and Tengu is like, "I do believe that your sister is one who... she's different than all of the rest of the demons. And the way that she deals with not eating human flesh is by sleeping. That's the way that she regains her strength." And so there you go. That's the way that you justify this coma thing. But the problem is, she's not getting any nutrition. So she should be dying. And she should be going insane. Just like the demon was at the beginning of the episode, and he ate his brother because he was so starving. But she doesn't, for some reason. And it doesn't... Again, that is unexplained. But at least there's some attempt to justify this going forward. So we can expect to see her a little bit more. She'll probably just keep sleeping until she eats someone or something. And, which is, I'm sad about, because I want to see more of Nazeko here. She's an important, integral character in this story. He wakes up again in the morning, and there's someone in a big basket hat with wind chimes connected to the hat, and you can't see his face, and he comes, and he's a very mysterious man, and he knocks on the door, and Tanjiro opens it, and he's kind of impressed by this character, who says, "I am here for Tanjiro. I have brought him his sword." He's like, "Oh, I'm Tanjiro, come in, why don't you?" And he's like, "Let me show you the sword." He's like, oh, okay, but won't you come in? And he's like, "The sword is made of this kind of iron ore, and it can turn scarlet if it's wielded by the person." And there's this huge back and forth by the two of them, and Tengu is listening inside, and is like, "Oh, that old guy babbling again." So they know each other, and he has given him his sword, and he's a very comedic character. I didn't really laugh very much, but he lifts his head at one point, and he has this clown mask that's like really huge eyes and the mouth out to the side like that, and it's hilarious. You don't expect it. I didn't expect it, but it's like one of those traditional comedic theater masks from Japan, obviously. And he's the one who delivers everyone's swords, and he's the one who actually makes the swords. And each of the Demon Slayer swords is one that reflects light and captures it, and that's why it's able to kill demons. And so everyone who uses the sword, something about the person is transmitted into the sword, and the sword changes color according to who's holding it. And so he gives Tanjiro his sword, and it turns black, and they're like, well, this is new. Never seen that before. And the guy just really wanted to see a red sword. He was really hoping it would be a red sword. And so that's kind of funny. And then another hilarious thing, a crow flies in, and one of the messenger crows, and actually starts talking to them, which is really hilarious. The way the voice actor in the Japanese sub actually did the voice acting. It's like a mixture between a human and a crow. It actually sounds like that. I can't recreate it. But it's wonderful. So he gets told that he has to go to this other village for his first mission. And the mission is to figure out why all of the girls in this certain village have been disappearing. So he is about to go on another adventure, just as he's come back from the previous one. And I'm actually excited for one of the first times in my viewing of this show. This show is still beautiful, and the animation is completely consistent, well done, quality, but I really do feel like the show is too short. Like, all of these different logical connections could have been made if this show were going at a bit of a slower pace. Of course, I like the pace of the last couple of episodes. They're, like, when it's slowed down into dialogue, it feels, like, kind of calming and pleasant. It's not like the first episode, which is, like, just people talking for a long time and panning and, like, really slow, just people flapping their lips and no real animation to convey emotion. It's been really good animation so far. So, yeah. This is like an 8 out of 10 episode. It just has those couple of problems I mentioned in the cuts and the editing, and I really think that if the show were longer or more stretched out, it could have dealt with some of my issues with it. And apparently, every single one of the disciples of Tengu are now ghosts who returned to their own master's land. And if Tanjiro had been killed by a demon, his ghost would be there. And which is why the demon, at the beginning, is shown as a child to have returned to his home, in a sense. Which is, like, really cool, like a spiritual world building that I really enjoy. And, yeah, keep doing this, show. Keep this up. I'm rooting for you. So, thanks for watching. That's my overview of this episode. It's the first one I've liked, actually really, really liked. Hopefully it keeps going in this direction. So leave a comment below to tell me what you thought about this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Please like and subscribe and notify yourselves when I put out another video. It shouldn't be long. I'm trying to do one every day, in every week, but for the Sabbath day, either Saturday or Sunday, because both of them are days off in, one of the Christian religions. Okay, so thanks for watching. Till next time, farewell.